Okay, so we are resuming with Hilchos Talmud Torah Perek Chamishi. Yesterday we went over the basic mitzvah in the Sefer Mitzvos, and then the other two formulations in the Rishimos and in the Koseres. And what we saw is that in the Sefer Mitzvos, the Rambam presents it as though the main mitzvah is kibud chachamim, is honoring chachamim in general, even people who are not your Rav, and even people who are not necessarily chachamim in Torah, just chachamim. Okay, and then there's a special mitzvah within that to honor, for a Talmud to honor his Rav. Okay, but then here in the Mishnah Torah, he introduces the mitzvah with kavod harav in Perek Chamishi, and then goes into kavod chachamim in Perek Shishi. So we noted that that's a little weird, and we came up with a tentative theory, which is that the order flows more here because he just got done talking about how the Rav and the Talmud relate to each other. Now he talks about kavod harav, then chachamim in 6, and then in 7 he talks about like the institution of cherem and nidui, like banning or ostracizing someone, and that's a function of chachamim in general. So we theorize that it's like an order of flowing, okay? But we weren't sure about that, and we said we had to we had to do all these halachos before we understand the relationship between this mitzvah and kavod chachamim. So that's a basic review of yesterday. So we also read the first couple of halachos yesterday, but we're going to read it again because we kind of read it at the end and raised some questions, but didn't get a chance to work on it. Okay, so Perek Chamishi halacha aleph. Kishem she'adam metuva b'chvod aviv uviraso, just like a person is commanded in the honor of his father and in revering him, kachu chayev b'chvod rabo uviraso, so too he is obligated in honoring his Rav and revering him. For Rabo Yasser mi Aviv, and his Rav more so than his father. She'aviv hebiu l'chayil olam hazeh, because his father brought him into this world. But Rabo shalim do chachma, but his Rav who taught him chachma is obligated to bring. Rav who taught him chachma brought him into or brings him into the world to come. Yeah, in Perek Chamishi halacha aleph. Yeah. Okay. So we said from there you see that it is. It's not a thing that you have to respect your Rav like. I don't know what this would mean, but intrinsically, but it's out of gratitude for what he did for you, meaning because he did this for you, therefore you're obligated to honor him. Whereas with other chachamim, we'll see that even if they didn't do anything for you, there's like an idea of intrinsic honor, like that chachamim deserve honor. Okay, same thing with your father. You're obligated to honor him because he brought you into this world, not because fathers intrinsically deserve honor. Yeah. Okay, so we didn't read this footnote yesterday, and this is one of these questions, like I kind of assume that the Rambam intends that someone who's learning the Mishnah Torah learns the entire Mishnah Torah, but there's obviously you have to go in a certain order. And unfortunately, like here, the Rambam talks about the institution of kibud avim, but he doesn't actually spell out the halachos until 13 books later in the last section, close to the last section. So you don't actually know what kibud avim means until much later. So what the footnote does, what Rav Makbili does in the footnote is he copies and pastes like the ikar halachos of kibud avim. So let's just read that just so we get a framework of for the Rav. And like, again, like it's the same halachos. It's just that with the Rav, there's more and it is more, it takes precedence. Okay, so footnote Aleph 1 on the right. So bechod aviv uviraso. So al kibud horim umoraam kasav rabbeinu. So regarding the honoring and revering of your father or of your parents, I should say, then the Rambam writes, Ezehu kibud. What is considered to be kavod? Ma'achil umashke malbish umachase. Feeding, giving them drink, clothing them and covering them. Umotzi umachnis, and then like escorting them in and out. This is not the Rambam. This is Rav Makbili. For example, like helping them to go into their house or to leave their house if they need like a helping hand. Okay, tongue twister here. Umashamsho b'shar hadvarim shahashamashim meshamshim bahem es harav, and serving them in other ways that servants serve their master. Okay, so those are 5 things, right? So food and drink, 5 things? I don't know how I'm counting. Food and drink, clothing and covering, escorting in and out, and serving them, 4 things. There's a 5th thing. And standing in front of them the same way that you stand in front of your Rav. Okay, so those are the 5 things for kavod. And then Ezehu Mora, what is considered to be revering your parents? Lo omed b'makomo, hamiyuchalo. Don't stand in his place, which is designated for him. Okay. Velo yoshev b'makomo, and don't sit in his place, like in his spot. Velo soser es devarav. Do not undermine his words. Doesn't mean that you can't disagree with him, but it means you can't like verbally or in like your position, like undermine him, contradict him. You cannot completely negate his words. Velo machria es devarav. You cannot. So machria literally means to decide or to weigh in. He says kashish lav svara achas v'habein svara acheres. B'davar hashakol l'kan l'kan asr l'bein lahachria neged das aviv b'fano. Okay, that's a different interpretation than what I understand it to mean. So he says what it means is if you, let's say you have one svara and your Rav has another, sorry, your Av has another svara, you can't like outweigh his svara with yours. Okay. What I understood it to mean is you can't like weigh in on his words. Like if you are, let's say like you have a sibling and your father scolds your sibling and you say, yeah, what dad said, you know, that's like basically infringing on his authority and like you're giving your haskama, you're giving your approval to his words, but that kind of like is also an insult because you're like taking away from his words. We're doing a Rambam Bekius footnote number 1, which goes over the kibud and mora of the aim. Okay, what else? V'lo yikre lo b'shmo b'chayav lo b'mosa. You cannot call him by his name in his lifetime or in his death. Okay. Ella Omer Abamari, but you have to just say my father, my master, right? And there's other halachos about that, but that really only applies if it is an unusual name, then you're not allowed to use his name anywhere, even when you're not in his presence. And if it is if it's a common name, then you can't use his name in his presence, but you can use it outside of his presence for someone else. Yeah, like the example, Rabbi Ginsburg's name is unique, right? No, Devere something. I mean, he's the only Devere I know, but Devere something then Paltiel Eliezer. It's like a completely unique name, you know? So like if he's your Rav, you wouldn't be able to use his name like even outside of his presence. But for someone who like has a normal name, you know, then you'd be allowed to use it outside of his presence, just not in his presence. Meaning like you can't call, so let's say like, well, Daryl is a regular name, you know, but Devere is not. And Devere, well, again, I don't remember his second name, Devere something, you know, you would not be able to like say that name outside of his presence. And let's say like there was someone who had his name. It's a good question. Hold on, I'm just bringing the particular halachos according to the Rambam. I know the case is you can't use his name for someone else. Like if someone else had that person's name, you would have to change. You'd have to like come up with a nickname for your friend so as to not use the same name of your Rav or father. Yeah, Yosef.
Well, if the person's asked you his name, like you can't just say Avi more. Like that's not gonna answer the question. Like,
right. So we'll see when we go through the halachos later on that a Rav has the right to be mochel on his kavod. A Rav has the right to like pardon his kavod in total or for certain people or in certain ways. And it seems to be like I would guess that in this day and age, then a Rav would allow you to identify him by name, like, you know, to someone else. But strictly speaking, we'll have to see what the Rambam holds about that, you know, whether that would be permitted from if he didn't mochel you, you know. Okay, so that's kibud and mora av aim. And the reason why I assume Rav Makbili brings it down here is just because the Rambam doesn't spell out what kibud and mora av is, even though he references it. Okay, but now we go to what we read yesterday, and this we had contradictions. So we're on Aleph 2. Okay, Ra Avedas Aviv Avedas Rabo. If you saw the lost object of your father and the lost object of your Rav, Shal Rabo Kodemes Shal Aviv. So then your Rav's lost object comes first. Aviv Rabo Nosim B'masa. Your father and your Rav are both carrying a burden. Maniach Eshal Rabo V'achkach Shal Aviv. First, you have to like help your Rav, and then your father. Aviv Rabo Shevuyim B'shivya. Your father and your Rav are both held hostage. Poda es Rabo V'achkach Poda es Aviv. I knew I was forgetting something. I forgot to look up where to look up the halachos of redeeming hostages. Hold on, I'm going to pause the recording and look that up now. Okay, so we'll get to the Pidyon Shevuyim in a second. So you redeem your Rav first, okay, then your Av. Okay, but then here's where we get to the weird exceptions, okay? V'im haya aviv talmid chachamim, if your father was a talmid chachamim, right? So he's a talmid, which means that even someone who has like basic halachic literacy, pode es aviv tchila. So you redeem your father first, even though he's nowhere near your Rav in level, okay? So that's for redemption. Then v'chein im haya aviv chacham, and if your father is a chacham, which means that you can ask him in any area of chacham and he'll answer you. Afal pish eno shalko k'neged rabo, even though he's not equal to your Rav, meishiv avedaso, you return his lost object first. The achkach meishiv avedas rabo, then you return your Ravs. Yeah.
Question for Yoshua. Who do you do first, now a man or a woman?
For Pidyon Shevuyim?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to look up.
Okay. So
I think you do, man. If I remember correctly, don't you do Kohanim and Levim and Yisraelim, and then you go women and children and slaves? And I think it goes by how many mitzvos you're obligated and like how much of the system you represent. I just can't remember what he says that. Yeah.
I think you do women before men.
You do women before men? Really?
Because of like the risk of them when they're like the risk for them when they're captives.
Oh, that does ring a bell. But you don't know where the halachos are? No? Okay. If someone wants to look for it while we're going, then we could do that. But otherwise, I think we shouldn't get involved in that sugya right now. Yeah. So the question is, what's with all these weird exceptions, right? And they're not even consistent exceptions, right? I feel like we needed a chart, but I don't know what the chart would look like. Yeah. No, but I don't know how to conceive of the chart. Yeah.
Flow chart.
Yeah, I feel like this it gets a little awkward though, right? Because it's not a true flow chart.
Yeah.
Flow chart to me represents primacy, questions of primacy, and then like subsidiary questions. But this is like, there is one thing is always father first, but then exception for this and exception for that, Strange. All right, so can we make sense of this?
What exactly are the exceptions?
So the exceptions are, if your father is a talmid, then you redeem him first. And if your father is a chacham, then you return his lost object first. Yeah, Chaim? Sure. And then we have the other additional complication that Rav Makbili brought in, but I'm fine like ignoring that.
Why is there no exception for Muslims and Matnos?
Yeah, right. That's the other thing also, is that there's no exception for if he's carrying a burden. And is that the only one?
For these things and not other things.
Yeah, there's three things he mentions, right? Is carrying a burden, redemption, and lost object. There's no exceptions for helping him with a burden. With captive, it's if he's a talmid, then you go father first, and then then in lost object, sorry, did I do that? Yeah, and if it's lost object, then if he's a chacham, you do him first. Yeah, Yosef.
It was happy work. With Pidyon Shevuyim, the idea is about potential, and your Rabo and the Talmud both have similar potential, so you're judging based off of kashers.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
like is a sort of tiebreaker, and as for why the Av is a tiebreaker in that direction, then I'm not
Okay,
totally
so you know
sure.
what? I think actually maybe we should do this halakha and Pidyon Shevuyim, and then I'm just going to after that look up in the Rambam index. I don't know why I didn't do that yesterday, because I was thinking at home I have my real index. But, this is Matnos Aniyim 8:10. Pidyon Shevuyim kodun leparnasos Aniyim ulechsusan. So redeeming of captives comes before providing for Aniyim and clothing them. The ein lecha mitzvah rabba kamo Pidyon Shevuyim. You never take the Rambam seriously when he says there's no mitzvah greater than this, right? Because they're playing mitzvahs greater than But so obviously that's either a hyperbole or it's qualified somehow. There's no mitzvah greater than redeeming of captives. What was that? What do you mean it could only happen once? You mean then he would only say it once?
Then nothing else can be greater.
Yeah, correct. Right. That's what I'm saying. That it can't be literal. I would say, for example, saving someone's life is presumably greater than Pidyon Shevuyim, right? But then he wouldn't say this. He would say saving a life, right? Because that's a separate mitzvah. Lo sam lo dam re'acha. All right. Sheshavui harihu bichlal haraevim hatzmeim ubichlal harumim. What? Okay, fine. Someone who's captive is included in those who are starving and thirsty and naked.
Sure.
I mean, it's true, but like, and then he throws in, and their life is in danger. Yes, yeah, right. That is true. I mean, I don't know what the standards were for captives back then.
Slavery.
Probably very low. Yeah,
The standard was slavery.
I assume it depends on the context. Did they not have ransoms back then?
That would be.
I assume they
that'd be
did.
like a handful of people. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that what a Pidyon Shevuyim is?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. V'hamalim.
I did learn the Rambam's halachos of Pidyon Shevuyim.
Oh, so you just don't know where they
I
are?
have no idea where it was.
Okay, yeah.
That's also very Bekius, but I remember he actually explicitly says, he says that you're not supposed to like bust people out of prison. That's
Because that encourages people to kidnap others.
I don't remember exactly why. I think he's like it looks bad or something.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
So if that's the case, then presumably Pidyon Shevuyim is paying off ransom and stuff.
Interesting. Let's see. So,
Tradition?
anyone have tradition?
No, it might be, name on it is Andrew John.
Oh, that's Chizkiyahu. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you.
actually, I think it's the seeing more stuff in the rest of the parak.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on just 1 second. I think I found it.
We're gonna have-
It's, you know what it is? Yeah, there is stuff in the rest of the parak. It's in Ishus. Okay. It's in Ishus 14, 18 through 22. Okay. But yeah, let's see here. Oh yeah, you're right. This does look like the main place. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I was wrong. So are we doing this? Are we doing this? Yeah, let's do this. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So let's go back then. Okay. So, here, let me pass out Ramos for everyone then. You. Nice.
I figure it's a good purpose, so I can use Seamus for something else. I mean, I can sure go for it.
Yeah, anyone have a page in the white Rambam? So right now we're in Matnos Aniyim. In fact, you know what? I'll find it here. Oh, what Rambam? Purchase. Matnos Aniyim. It's in Sefer Zra'im. So we're on page. What did we say? 8. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's on page 560. Okay. We got it?
Yep.
Okay. So, and we're in the middle of that first halacha. So he says, so just to translate it again. So redemption of captives comes before taking care of the poor and clothing them. And there's no mitzvah greater than Pidyon Shevuyim because a shavui is included in those who are starving, thirsty, naked, and their life is in danger. V'hamalim einav mi pidyono, one who hides his eye from redeeming him. Over al los amit as lavavcha lo sikpot as yadcha. So he violates the isser against withholding tzedakah, which we did in Mishlei. You should not strengthen your heart or clench your fist. And he also violates don't stand over your fellow's blood, which is when you can like save someone's life and you don't. He's also in violation of do not like work him with oppressive labor in your eyes. That's like for an eved, you're not allowed to work him with oppressive labor. That's interesting. I guess because you're leaving him to be worked in oppressive labor, right? Labor, you're leaving him in a situation where that's going to happen. Like Yosef was saying, slavery. Ubitel mitzvahs pasoch tiftach es yadcha. You're also being mevatel the mitzvahs say of opening your hand, which is tzedakah. Umitzvahs v'chei achicha imach. Your brother shall live with you. Is that in the context of slavery? This is not all Torah. It's not going to open up in a new window. Hold on. 36. That is. That's when you. That's by an Eved Ivri, I think. Yeah, I think so. No, you don't need to write that down. That's fine. That's included in the Rambam's here. V'havta l'recha kamocha. and v'ahavta l'orecha kamocha. Okay, loving your fellow like yourself. V'hatzel lekuchim lamaves. That's not even in the Torah. That's in Mishle 24:11. What's the pasuk? 24:11. Hatzel lekuchim lamaves umatim lahereg im tachsoch. Don't know what that means. Save the ones who are taken for death and inclined to killing if you with refrain. Yeah, that's such a strange thing to say. You're over a pasuk in Mishle. The Harvey Divine Kalo and lots of things like this. Okay, so this is not an exhaustive list. What was that?
Well, it sounds like he's saying lack of an action is an action.
Yeah, it does sound like you're saying that. Yeah. The Ein Lecha mitzvah Rabba Pidyon Shevuyim. You just said that. That's so funny. There's no mitzvah as great as Pidyon Shevuyim.
He drops come out.
Yeah, I don't even think that makes a grammatical difference. So strange. Okay. Okay. Onward. I mean, so we get the main point, right? Which is that lots of bad stuff can happen when you are a captive, right? All right. Anshe ha'ir shegabu ma'os lebinyan beis hakneses. People, members of a city who gathered money, who raised money for building the beis hakneses, building a shul. Ubalahen davar mitzvah, and a mitzvah matter comes their way. Mosin bo es hamaos. They can spend the money. That's interesting. I would not have guessed that. Okay, kanu avan, because there's all these rules about what do you call? Well, you can't like sell a shul and use its money for anything with a lesser kedusha. So I guess they haven't started building it yet, right? They just raised the money for it.
Well, this is also some lesser kedusha. There's no mitzvah like this. So
No, this is for any devar mitzvah.
Well, what exactly?
He says if you were collecting money for a shul and then some other mitzvah comes your way, then motzin es hamas, you can spend the money on the mitzvah. Yeah. Kanu avanim v'koros, if they have already purchased stones and beams, because you can't build a shul without stones and beams. Lo yamachru osan l'devar mitzvah. They should not sell them for devar mitzvah. So that's like what I was saying. Ella l'pidyon shevuyim, except for redeeming the captives. So there he does say it now. Afal pi shehevi es halavenim v'gadru es ha'avanim. Even though they have brought the bricks and fenced the stones.
Does this also apply to like the crowns of the Torah?
The crowns of the Torah. You mean not being able to sell them?
Yeah, except for like.
So there's halachos about that, right? It counts as tashmishe kedusha, I think, of like things that are like auxiliary for kedusha things. So there's a whole hierarchy of like what you are and are not allowed to sell, and those are on the hierarchy. They're just not as big as the Torah itself.
I remember reading the story. I don't know if you want to say the name of the book. Nagid speaks.
I gotta edit it out now. I gotta edit that out. Yeah.
This was one of the stories.
Yeah.
They dealing sold the hands.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So there you go. So that they're definitely allowed to do, right? Okay. I don't know. What did he say?
Yeah.
Oh, you couldn't hear?
No, I couldn't.
Oh, so that means that the recording didn't hear it either. Okay, hold on. Let me. Oh, he heard in a book, in a sefer, that there was a show where they had to like sell the crowns of the Torah to redeem a kid in Russia.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not naming the book.
Okay, let's not talk about that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we're closing the window. Okay. Anyway, so we learned from here that you're allowed to sell a crown of Torah to save a Russian kid.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next, where were we at? Oh, so I don't know what Gadru es havanim means. I assume it's some building process of like doing something to the stones, maybe like putting them in place, like foundation stones. Upatzlu es hakoros, and you've stripped the beams. I think that's what it means, meaning like to like prepare them for being used in the shul, not like like taking all the bark or whatever off of them. Maybe v'hiskinu hakol lebinin, and you fixed everything for prepared everything for building. Mochrin, Isaac, can you mute yourself? Mochrin hakol lepidyon shevuyim bilvad. So you can only sell them for redemption of captives. Okay, I mean that stands to reason. I don't know why he has to bring this down as a separate halacha. Like, are there things you're not allowed to sell for Pidyon Shevuyim? Like, you would think that he would just say anything you're allowed to sell for Pidyon Shevuyim.
Well, you might think that. Well, you might think that they could exclude these things. Say anything.
Right, but in other words, why can't he just say? It seems like he could omit the money case and just talk about the selling case. Like there's two cases. There's collecting money. He says you're allowed to use it for any mitzvah. So sorry, there's three cases. If you collect money, you can use it for any mitzvah. So that he has to say. Okay. Then if you've bought stones and beams, you can only sell them for a davar. You can only sell them for Pidyon Shevuyim. And then he says, even if you've like made all these other preparations, you can sell them for Pidyon Shevuyim. Sounds like he doesn't need to say the selling the beams and stone and stones.
Like, is there like a higher level? There's like a plan of action to implement that.
Right, but that would be the second one. But the third level is even more than that. Like you're literally like putting them in place. You know, like you're almost like stopping construction. This is v'im banu v'gamru. But if you have built it and finished it, lo yimachru es habesa knesses ella yigabu lepidyonon min hatzibur. Oh, so then there is a limit then, right? So if you actually built a shul, you cannot sell a shul to redeem captives. You have to collect more money. So that is interesting then. That's so weird, right? I mean, if this is a real case of sakanas nefashos, right? If this is like an actual case where someone's life is in immediate danger, of course you can sell it.
So maybe it's like he's saying once there's a shul, that means there's a community, and therefore it's possible
Well,
to collect.
the-
Wait. Hold on. Say that again.
I mean,
Yeah.
If there's already a big midrash,
Yeah.
like that means there's a community, meaning it's possible to collect.
Right. So I hear what you're saying. You're saying that like you could presumably just get money like that, but I don't know if it's that simple in reality. Like, and what if it is in immediate danger? You know, like a lot of these, like, like they send you a finger or something and say like every 5 minutes, whatever. Yeah, Joseph.
Some Stomp case is not the Holocaust, and Stomp case is slavery. Or if it's like the Holocaust, then yes, it's immediate danger. Stomp case is slavery, where they'll still be alive in several months.
Right. That you must say that, I guess, right? Because if it's so it's not like literally like your life is in immediate danger, right? Yeah. I think that would make sense. Although the only question I would have here, which I guess we'll have to see when we do the women captives, is we also treat in many areas, if not all areas, someone's life being in danger to no, because that's not a rios then. I guess if they're kidnapped by a Jew and they're in danger of being violated by a rios, then it would be like a rodef situation. Yeah.
Well, he does say that if the shul is built, then you can't sell it.
Correct.
Maybe there's like a havamina that even if it's in progress, then you can't sell it.
You mean that's why he said
That's
this?
why
Yeah.
yeah.
That now that makes sense. You're right. I only thought that it was a question because I didn't see that he does put a cap on it. But yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Ein pidyon podin es hashvuyim b'yeser al demehen. We do not redeem captives for more than they're worth. Mipnei tikkun ha'olam, because of tikkun ha'olam, right? So here we have the Rambam's idea of tikkun ha'olam, right? Not the Reformed Jewish idea of tikkun ha'olam. Tikkun ha'olam does not mean all social justice issues, according to the Rambam. It means for the benefit of society at large, right? And he explains what it is here. Shelo yihu ha'oivim rodfim achrim l'shavosam. Because if you were to like inflate the value or pay for more than the value, people are then going to be like, oh, I'm going to bag me a couple of Jews and then get a lot of money. It's going to contribute to more cases of capture. We do not mavriach. Mavriach means to chase away. I don't think that's what it means here, though. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, just think of like, so you don't choose everyone. So let's say we're saying do Nazis, but this not apply since they're coming after us anyway.
Yeah, I do think that persecution is a different case than Pidyon Shevuyim, but I don't know where to draw the line.
Yeah. Or I'm saying just as opposed to Stalin persecution, where it's just the persecution of saying Nazis because they capturing people to kill them and they're going for everyone. Because like Nazis are not persecution; they're capturing to kill.
Right. They're not even asking for money.
Yeah, it seems like it's the question. There's a difference of what they're like. What is they want? Someone who just like takes captives for money. What they want is to get money out of it.
Right. Unless they're like Joseph was saying, like slavery.
Okay, fine. They're like the financial incentives.
Right.
Because like if slavery, then they'll go after Jews more because then they can make a business out of selling them.
Right, but I don't even know if it's only financial though, because there's also like like for religious purposes or for dominance purposes, like to humiliate. I don't know what the historical context was for slavery, so I don't want to say it's exclusively financial. Let's just see what the brick thing was that we didn't understand. Even if they brought the stones to the building site, cut the beams and shaped them to size, and prepared everything for building. Okay, fine. That's basically what we said. Okay, but then what is the mavriach? We do not assist captives in escaping. Okay, so meaning helping them to flee is where the word comes from.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear you.
No, like before when I said we don't want to bust them out of prison.
Oh, bust them out of prison. Okay, yeah. So we don't help captives to escape. Why? Oh, because of tikkun olam. But why? So that the enemies do not make heavy the yoke upon them, umarvim bishmirasan, and increase their security, right? So if it were a thing that Jews would bust people out of prison, so then the security is going to be much stronger, and then that like is could be bad for their experience, right? Like their oppression. Yeah.
It's a weird argument though.
I mean, the argument is one of quantity, right? That we obviously we're concerned about this guy, but if we do certain actions with this guy, then it's going to lead to greater net oppression, right? Yeah. It sounds like he's saying that we don't do this in general because this thing is likely gonna happen. Right. First of all, I mean, I think you can make a convincing argument that you don't know that it's not going to cause that, like let's say you make a secret deal and like whatever, you don't know that it's not going to get out. And even if you did know, then it does seem like a low plug type thing that we just don't, that this is the halacha. I think unless there's something about tikkun ha'olam that is like a case by case basis thing. Yeah. He doesn't say it's usher, right? Just ain. Right. Could this just be that this is policy? Ain Pidyon Shevuyim. Not that this is like an actual isser. I just don't know. I don't know the lesson. I was going to look at one thing. Oh yeah, there's a famous case of this which we should know about just because it's a heroic thing. I think the Maharam Rothenberg. Wait, Maharam Rothenberg is leading creator of textiles. That's not the one I wanted. Rothenberg. I think.
Wait, what's the source?
You don't need to put the Wikipedia there. That's fine. I think he was kidnapped. Yeah. So. Along with many others, this Rambam Rothenberg is where most of the Ashkenazic minhagim come from. All right, that's like one of the big Ashkenazic poskim. 1215 to 1293. Along with many others, Meir left Germany with a family and followers, but was captured in the mountains of Lombardy, having been recognized by a baptized Jew named Kneppi. That Kneppi, and imprisoned in a fortress near I don't know how to say that. Tradition has it that a large ransom of 23 marks silver was raised for him by Asher ben Yechiel. That's the rush, right? Yeah, that's the rush. But Meir refused it for fear of encouraging the imprisonment of other rabbis. He ruled on his own abduction in light of Talmudic law. Meir died in prison after 7 years, right? 14 years after his death, a ransom was paid for his body by Alexander ben Solomon Wimpfen, who was subsequently laid to rest beside him in the Jewish cemetery of Worms. Yeah, so that was a you don't get a ton of cases like this where like a really famous, Rishon, like has this type of martyrdom. Like there's different types of martyrdom, but yeah. So that's it's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, right.
That seems like that might have been overpriced.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. With the
I think they're kind of profitable prices don't cause you more. I think the palette and the people who are doing it, I think they hate us enough to do it anyway, regardless of whether.
I don't know. Yeah, I assume that there were probably halachos discussions around that case, right? Or cases like that.
I'm sure there were.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how.
That's
I'm pretty sure there were. I'm not sure how much relevant people care about the halachos discussions.
I'm sure the rabbinate and other people.
Was it the rabbinate making the deal?
I assume they tried to like get influence. Isn't that what rabbinates do?
It said that the Russians wanted the money.
Yeah.
I think he cared
Yeah.
about it a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Misha Makar Atma Ubanav Lagoyim. Whoopsies, you clicked the wrong button on eBay, right? Someone who sold himself and his kids to Goyim. I mean, it's funny, like, is this as a slave? Like,
Yeah, it's just like if you're starving to death.
Okay.
better to
Well, like
be a
indentured
slave.
servitude.
I guess so. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Oshalava mehen v'shavu oso o asru oso bahal va'asan, or you borrowed from them and then they captured him like a loan shark or creditor thing, right? O asru oso bahal va'asan, or they bound him, they like put him in prison because of his loan. Pam rishona ushnia mitzvah liftoso. The first and the second time, it's a mitzvah to redeem him. Shlishis, the third time, ain't podin so leave him, okay? Of all podin as bani, but you do save his children. Misas avihen, after the death of their father. Yikes. So is this a thing where like this guy clearly is not good at managing his money if he gets himself like caught by loan sharks 3 times?
Yeah, like a liability.
Could be. Yeah. What was that, Isaac?
So the Gemara in Horios talks about, not Horios, in
The Matthews?
never, no, it wasn't, no. Anyway, the Gemara says that basically as a consequence for not doing Shemitah, I think it is,
Yeah.
like it has details like a whole like chain of things that like happen. Oh, there's an
Yeah.
arrowhead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like and like the last stage is that you end up selling yourself to like the slavery. So I think if a person is having such bad financial troubles that that like they can't like not sell themselves to slavery or like get captured by it, then like I guess I don't know whether you give the explanation that like it's like some sort of like hashgachic punishment, but it seems from like Gemara that like that like might be a factor.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, based on just this, I would say that it just is a thing where like, you know, you only bail someone out a certain number of times before you realize that this is not just like a what do you call a happenstance, like unfortunate event. Like this guy can't, it's going to be infinite. It's going to be infinite, you know, which is, I mean, funny because like presumably we would save someone's life even many times, but okay. V'im bikshu lahorgo, there you go. If they want to kill him, if they're trying to kill him, podin also miyadam afilo achar kama pa'amim. There you go. Very good. Then you redeem him even many times. Okay. Next, Eved Shenishba, a servant who is or a slave who is captured. Hoyo v'tavo l'shem avdus. So this is a non-Jewish slave. Since he did tefillah in the mikvah for the sake of becoming a slave, the kibbutz of mitzvos, and he accepted mitzvos upon himself. Podin oso ki Yisrael shenishba. We redeem him just like a Jew who was who captured. V'shavui shnishtamed afilu mitzvah achas, a captive who apostatized, right? Who went to another religion or even like renounced one mitzvah. Kagon shaya ochel nevela lahachis, like he's a guy who like keeps all the other mitzvahs, but then he eats nevela in order to make God angry as a rebellious thing. Asur lifto, so it's asur to redeem him. So that's part of the whole group of things, like people who are like intentional apostates, then we let them die. Ha'isha, as opposed to someone who's like raised that way or like can't help it. Ha'isha kodemus le'ish. Oh, here we go. This is the halacha we need to get to, right? Ha'isha kodemus le'ish. A woman comes before a man. So both for feeding, clothing, and for redeeming. Okay, so this is tzedakah and Pidyon Shevuyim. Because it's the man's way to go begging, and it's not the way of the woman to go begging. I don't know what that means in terms of like, if he means like societally, like women didn't go around begging, or if he means that like psychologically, constitutionally, like she's not gonna have like the same experience like with or the same like success as a guy who's begging. Uboshta Maruba, and her shame is greater. That's definitely a psychological thing. Vim hayushneim b'shivya, both of them were captured. V'nitba'u shenehen ledvar avera, and both of them were being erva, ledvar erva, and both of them were basically being nitba'u, summoned, in demand. How do we translate that? No, but what's the tava'u? Solicited for a transgression. They make a clean translation for a transgression. Oh, it's funny. They actually translated the Devar Avera. I mean, the actual manuscript, not manuscript, the non-manuscript version of the Rambam says Avera.
Chabad and Marco separately then?
No, it's okay. But another reason why you shouldn't use the doofus.
Check the website.
The doofus is, we've been over this many times, right? The doofus is the standard editions of the Rambam. This is why you only use the good editions of the Rambam. The diffus is what it means as a printed edition, but we say the doofus because you're a doofus if you use that Rambam. I didn't make that up. Kafak made that up. Okay, so basically like the guy is going to be raped or the woman is going to be raped. So then it says Ha'ish kodem liftos. That's really interesting. That's not going to go over so well these days. You redeem the guy first because this is not like his way. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. You know, it's weird to juxtapose that with saying it's his way to beg and not her way to beg, and it's not his way to be raped. Like, I mean, we know what it means, like statistically, obviously, it's much more common for.
Who's listening? Who's listening to it that they're offering themselves up?
No. They're being solicited for, like their captives are doing this to them, you know. But what I'm saying is that it's weird. It seems like there's a unity in these halachos that both of them have to do, like you go based on what the normal derech is, you know. And it's weird though to say the normal derech of begging versus not begging versus the normal derech of getting raped or not getting raped. Like those seem like very different drachim, you know. Yeah, I don't get the second one either.
It makes sense that we're saying you would then this is the area because it's more because it's worse for the woman to be in captivity, you redeem her first. But if they're being raped, a man suffers more. It's less of his way, so it's more painful for him to be raped than for the woman.
Well, it doesn't say suffering. It just says what's common, and that's exactly why I'm saying that the derech for begging for money also is it doesn't have to do with like suffering. It just has to do with like what's normal. But that's a separate thing, right? It's two things. It's ein isha darka l'chazer and boshta meruba. But you can make the argument also: isn't her boshas going to be greater if she gets raped? I mean, probably not actually, because if it was common, it was very common back then. Then it wouldn't be the same kind of shame. Yeah. Objection? Why? Right, but that's the difference than the boshas thing, though, right? Yeah. Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm getting the impression that we're not going based on consequences here. We're going based on like the derech. You know, I'll give you an example of this, by the way. Like, was it? Yeah, I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying I don't think the reason has to do with the consequences. But I think it is unanimous that men are way lower in repeating sexual abuse of themselves than women are in repeating sexual abuse of themselves. Like there's a far different like level of like societal shame around like men coming forward for like, you know, saying that they were sexually abused. Which again, I gotta imagine that if that's true in this day and age, like all the more so like back then, you know, like when this stuff is being talked about now. But yeah, so I don't know what to make of this. Okay, next, Yasom, let's try to finish these halachos today, which we can do, I think. Yasom v'yasoma, an orphan or an orphaness, that's not a word, right? Male or female orphan, an orphan or an Annie, Shabao lahasi osan. Oh, this is not even, are we still in the same subject, or we're done now? Oh, no, we're still in the same subject, yeah. I think, right? Yeah. So an orphan or an orphaness who is, who comes to get married. Messian as ha-isha kodem ish. So we arrange the marriage of the isha before the ish. Sheboshta shall isha meruba, because the shame of the woman is more. So I assume this is the shame of her being an orphaness, right?
I've heard this in some places. There was a law in Muslim countries where a person was an orphan, they forced you to convert to Islam. Whereas an orphan,
what does that have to do with this?
And that is somehow Tzavur Shevuyim and that's similar to maybe because they're being in a state where they were going to lose control of themselves. So if they're unmarried, they'll
you're just saying a historical case where this might have come about. You're not
Yeah.
explaining what the
Yeah.
case is definitively. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, fine. I just thought it meant that like they need to get married. Like let's say like I don't know, like let's say they need someone to take care of them, or like they don't have enough money.
That was the reason why you need to marry them.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. V'lo yifchasu la mimishkal shisha dinarim ravia dinar shal kesef tahor. Okay, so I guess that's like for the dowry or whatever you call that thing. V'im yesh bekis shel tzedakah nosnin la kfi kvoda. So if there's money in the tzedakah thing, then we give her according to her kavod. Okay, fine. That doesn't really have to do with Pidyon Shevuyim. Hayu lefenenu aniyim harbe o shevuyim harbe v'im bekis k'tei lefarnes o k'tei lechasas o k'tei liftos as kulan. So let's say you have many poor people, many captives, and there is only enough to care for, to clothe, or to redeem. There's not enough to care for, to clothe, or to redeem all of them. This is what I was thinking of. Makdimin esakohin lelevi. So you go with the Kohen before the Levi, then Levi Kohen Yisrael, then Levi before Yisrael, the Yisrael lechalal, Yisrael before a halal, which is the how do you translate halal? Invalidated Kohen, blemished Kohen. V'chalal l'shtuki, shtukiish. No, I don't know what shtuki is. I always forget what shtuki is. It's some sort of other like moms, quasi momser category. Let's see. I don't think so. That's a good guess though. Shtuki is a oopsies. The term shtuki is one who is silent, refers to a child who knows the identity of his mother but does not definitely know the identity of his father. So this is like what we call like a bastard, not like a halachic momser, right? But like out of like uncertain paternity, right? Like Jerry Springer style. I don't even know if people know who that is anymore. No, he's not, but he had a lot of them on the show. So shtuki la asufi. A sufi is someone who was like a street, someone who was like gathered off the street. A sufi la mamzer. A sufi comes before mamzer. Mamzer la nitin. Nitin is someone who's with crushed genitals, I think. Yeah. Let me just see the exact definition here. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. I'm thinking of someone else. The term Nitin means the designated ones, and it refers to the descendants of the Gibeonites, one of the 7 Canaanite nations who converted en masse. Joshua decreed that they be forbidden to marry among the Jewish people. David reinforced that decree, causing it to apply even at a time when the sanctuary is no longer standing. So we don't have those guys anymore. And then Nitin Gadol Imana B'Kedusha. Nitin Kodem Lager. Nitin comes before Ger. Gerim are always lowest on the in the realm of the sexual like identity in the kahal, or like not identity, sexual
classification.
Joining. Not yichus. Yichus is the wrong word. Like if a ger, like the case is like if a ger, if you see someone who is a ger, you don't have, and he wants to be in a minyan, right? Or he wants to do shchita or whatever. You don't have to check out his yichus, and confirm that he converted. But if he wants to get married or she wants to get married, then you have to have proof that they converted. You cannot rely on chazaka. What was that? So like bia bakal is the phrase, is entering into the congregation, then they're on a different level. A lower level. Yeah, Shahanatin Gadol Iman of Kedusha, because Natin was raised with us in Kedusha, because the Gibeonites were there for a long time. V'ger Kodem LaEved Meshukrar, a ger comes before a freed slave, Lefi Shahaya Bichlal Arur, because a freed slave, it was included in the category of accursed, but ger is not accursed. Yeah, so the question is like, how do you reconcile this with, oh, never mind, you don't have to reconcile this. So Isha in all of these categories comes first. Okay, so it doesn't go by mitzvos like I was saying.
What if you have, I don't know, a woman Kohen?
Right, so a woman Kohen would, so it seems like and you don't have enough money to redeem all of them. It seems like a woman Kohen would come before a man Levi, right?
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Doesn't make a difference, right?
I don't think it changes her, right? Yeah, her kids.
Also, what about if they're your rabbi, or if they're big?
Next.
Oh, right. So that's what we have to do. Yeah, let's last one now. Okay. When does this apply to? Meaning, when does this previous classification apply to? Not the woman thing. V'shayu shavin b'chachma. That's only if they're equal in chachma. V'im haya kohen gadol am haaretz. Oh, we read this earlier in the year. V'im haya kohen gadol am haaretz umamzer talmid chachamim kodem. So we found what we were looking for. So if it's a kohen gadol who's an am haaretz, and who's ignoramus, and a mamzer who's a talmid chacham, the talmid chachamim comes first. We'll get to that in a second. The greater you are in chachma, kodem es chavera. Then he's greater than a chavera. You just whip out the IQ test. V'im haya echad mehen rabba o aviv, and if one of them was your rab or your father, afal pi sheyesham gadol mehen b'chachma, even though there's someone greater than them in chachma, rabba o aviv shu talmid chachamim kodem lezeh shu gadol mehen b'chachma. Then your rab or your father, who is a talmid chachamim, comes before the one who's greater in chachma.
He doesn't say Rav or Aviv, no.
He doesn't say what?
He doesn't say the Aviv versus Rav.
Right. He doesn't say Aviv versus Rabbo.
But he puts them in the same category.
Right. But then when you combine that with the with Hilchos Talmud Torah, so then your father, who is we do need some sort of chart here. Father who is a Talmid Chachamim comes before your Rav, even if your Rav is greater than Chachma, it seems like. Yeah.
How big is, are you saying now in Rabbo you ignore Chachma hierarchy? And then
right.
And then inherent with Avin Rabbo there's, and then if you're ignoring Chachma hierarchy, the Rabbo only has a hierarchy because it was Chachma.
Right.
So therefore between the two you do the
That's interesting. Yeah.
Although the other thing that wouldn't make sense for why you'd only do it if that was a Talmud.
Yeah. See, the question is there a flow chart thing that has like consistent criteria, or is it like, can you unify all the criteria, or is it just like these exceptions here? It's hard. Also,
the other thing I found, which really has so you have פירוש Mishnah.
Where?
I think like this last one. I think like this last one, because this Mishnah is talking about.
Okay. So let me just read the Mishnah. Avidasav avidas aviv shelo kodemis. So your lost object and your father's, then yours comes first. That's interesting. I think so. That's what it means. Yeah. Avidasav avidas rabo shelo kodemis. If your lost object and your rav's, yours comes first. Avidas aviv avidas rabo. If it's your lost object of your father and your rav, show rabo kodemis, l'sho aviv, then your rav's comes before your father's. Aviv mevil l'chaya holam hazev, rabo shalim do chachma mevil l'chaya holam haba, like the Rambam says. Im haya aviv shakol k'neged rabo. If your father is equal to your rav, avedas aviv kodemis, then the lost object of your father comes first. Haya aviv rabo nosim b'masa maniach ashel rav v'achach maniach ashel aviv. Same as the Rambam. Aviv Rabo Shevuyim b'Shivya Podes Rabo Achak Podes Aviv Imhai Aviv Talmid Chachamim Podes Aviv Achak Podes Rabo. Okay, now Rambam here says, Da Shafilu Lo Pirish Lo Ela Mila b'Mishnah Harihu Nikra Rabo. So so this is going to be relevant to when we define who your Rav is. Even if he only explained to you one word of Mishnah, he's considered your Rav. Okay.
That's great.
What was it? Afilu lo pirish lo ela mila b'mishnah. Even if this guy only explained to you one word of Mishnah, then he's considered your Rav. Yeah. Now, don't get excited here, because there's two types of Rav. There's Rav, and then there's Rav Muvhak. And many of the things that the Rav is going to say in our parak have to do with Rav Muvhak. Rav Muvhak means your main Rav. No, not community rabbi. Rav Muvhak means your main Rav, which the Rambam will define. Who you learn Torah from. But here in Pidyon Shevuyim, he's saying even if the guy teaches you one word of Mishnah, then he's your Rav. What was that, Chaim? This is about Pidyon Shevuyim, it seems like. Okay. Well, let's finish reading the Rambam. No, never mind. But all of this hierarchy in lost objects and stuff is not if he's your Rav, but specifically your Rav Muvhak. Okay. V'hu, and that is, who's your Rav Muvhak? Shetiye rov chachmaso mimeno, that the majority of his chachma came from this one person. Okay. So you got two Ravs. Category A, anyone who taught you even one word. And then Rav Muvhak, person who taught you the majority of your chachma, that person is the one who the Rambam was talking about in chapter 5. and in all the stuff about the lost objects.
Is the Rambam getting into what that means?
The other Rav, Rav Mufak, he just says that you learn. Yeah, he just says that you learn the majority of your chachma from him.
How do I know that? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If you have to ask, then you'll never know. No, you would know.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Okay. Who you learn the majority of your chachma from? So
I mean,
I have no clue.
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there's a couple
Okay.
candidates, but I don't know which one it is.
Okay, fine. So hold on. We technically we haven't gotten to this in the Rambam yet, so let's put that on the side.
Is knowledge like facts?
We'll get to that in good time. Okay, we'll get to that in good time. We were just reading it in the Pidyon Shevuyim here. V'haremez she'adam atzmo kodem lizlaso yihye mishi yihye amri sal b'mamon efes kilo yihye b'cha evyon kilo amar she'ena tachayev l'salik nezek mizulascha ela b'tnai shelo yachul b'cha oso hanezek shesalku mimeno. What? Okay. The illusion that a person himself comes before anyone else is what is said in the Torah regarding money. Efes kilo yihye b'cha evyon. I never know how to translate the Ephes here. And you know what? I actually have to go exactly at 2:30 today. So let's just stop here for today. That was an interesting journey there.
Yeah.
Okay, we got that interesting stuff. So to say tomorrow we have to come back to the and see and just try to consolidate what we got for our halachos and Talmud Torah and then go on after that. Thank you.
I'll just say a quick.
Thank you.
Yep.
The person knows he says that if they're both public